Well, I think the government has behaved in a manner which is petulant, shrill, hysterical, and counterproductive over the poisoning of Mr. Skripal and his daughter. I just do not see what we have to gain by ratcheting up tension all the more when we cannot be 100% certain that it definitely comes from the Kremlin. It could come from the Russian mafia. It could come from anywhere. We do not know. We simply do not know. It's only been in the last... Well, Porton Down still has no real means of testing whether this particular chemical is one which was made by the Russians, because they do not have the original to test it with. You know, we are making too many assumptions and we're harming ourselves. 23 diplomats have been kicked out of Moscow. That doesn't help us. It probably leaves us open to more... machinations from Russia. It possibly was Russia. I mean, we may differ on this, George.
No, it possibly was. No, I agree with you entirely. It could have been the Russian state even. It's even more likely to have been Russians of some stripe or other. But nobody can conclude that right now.
That's exactly right. And when the odd thing, George, is that when you raise this, and when I've raised it, what I get is, you're a supporter of Putin. You know, and I'm not a supporter of Putin. I think it would be useful if we had decent relations with Russia, because it's a big country and shares with us a number of concerns about what's going on in the world. You know, I think it would be better off if we were peaceable with Russia. Obviously, if they have done something like this, then we have to take some sort of action. But it is not clear by any means that they have done anything. And until it's clear, I don't think we should be making ultimatums and in the manner of a sort of transgressed 8-year-old child and telling them they have to respond by midnight. I mean,
exactly.
It's pathetic.
Now, this is a view shared by Peter Hitchens and you and me and Craig Murray and many, many people of different political stripes. So it isn't a left or right thing. I like the point you made, that this is self-harm. You see, I don't care about Russia. Russia can look after itself. It's doing quite well, by the way, and it's likely to go on doing so. I'm against what's happening because of us, because of our interests. And I believe this to be self-harm.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's an act of self-harm. And it's always the same, George, isn't it? When a government feels it has to do something, it's forced into some form of precipitous action, which always ends up making the situation slightly worse. I mean, the obvious example, going back a long time, I suppose, is the Dangerous Dogs Act.
Yes.
You know, we must do something, so they create legislation which is utterly fatuous.
And unanimous.
More problems.
You know, when the House is unanimous, it's almost always unanimously wrong.
Well, that's the other point. It's a very good point, George. We've got to be a bit worried about unanimity. There's always something it's got the whiff of hysteria and hate week about it. You know, this where everyone joins together in this sort of outrage. And I notice, incidentally, that some of the Europeans are stepping back a little and refusing to say, yes, it was Russia. They're not going that far. And I think what Boris Johnson said was utterly absurd. And, you know...
That's a sacking offence, I think, Rod.
I think it's a sacking offence. You know, 20 million people in Russia died fighting Hitler. You know, and to compare Putin to Hitler is grotesque.
And you see, whilst we're told not to mention the war, though I mention it at every possible occasion, in Russia, it's the opposite. They revere their wartime generation. They venerate the 25 million war dead. They commemorate it always and every year and every place. And to do what Boris Johnson did yesterday is just unpardonable, unforgivable, I think.
I think that's true. And one can support Johnson now and again for his jokes. He occasionally makes jokes. I don't mind people making jokes.
You make some good jokes yourself, Rod.
Well, thank you, mate. But this isn't a joke. It is not a joke. And to have our own foreign secretary comparing a country which should be, in the end, an ally, comparing it to Hitler is I think, unforgivable, and as you say, a sackable offence.
Just finally, I don't know if you know, very few people did when I revealed it yesterday. I revealed it having looked it up, that in fact Russia was the only country to boycott the 1936 Berlin Hitler Olympics.
Indeed, yes.
And the British athletes were told by Henderson, the British ambassador, that they must give the Hitler salute.
They must give the Hitler salute. No, I remember the story very, very well. You couldn't make this kind of irony up.
No.
It's pretty shocking. It's also worrying because on the back of this, George, what we're going to be getting now, and there are plenty of people who want to pursue this agenda, is people are going to be telling us that the Russians are sending their warships up and down our coasts. They're going to be, much as we do with their coast, of course,
yes.
And there's going to be planes flying backwards and forwards. We're at the mercy of a cyber attack. It all ratchets up the tension, and there's no evidence for any of it.
Yeah. It is an extraordinary turn of events. I wish I fully understood it. Maybe in time we will. Meanwhile, it's a pleasure to be on the same side of the argument as you, Rod Liddle, of the Sunday Times and of the Spectator. Thanks for joining us. I would have liked to have talked to him for longer, but he has another pressing task for our joint employer.